Dear friends, welcome you all in the 3 weeks online training program on power generation, transmission and distribution technology. This is the first session of this online training program and the topic is emerging power scenario in India. Power is one of the most critical components of infrastructure crucial for the economic growth and welfare of any nation. Indian power sector is one of the most diversified in the world. Sources of power generation range from conventional sources such as coal, lignite, natural gas, oil, hydro, and nuclear power to viable non-conventional sources such as wind, solar, biomass, small hydro, and domestic waste. The Indian power sector is mainly governed by the Ministry of Power. The Ministry of Power is the apex body responsible for the development of electrical energy in India. This ministry started functioning independently from 2nd July 1992. Earlier it was known as the Ministry of Energy. Now there are three major pillars of power sector. The first one is generation, second is transmission, and last one is distribution. Before going to the details of interconnection between generation, transmission and distribution, we will have a short look on Electricity Act 2003. The Electricity Act 2003 has been enacted and came into force from 15th June 2003. The objective of this act is to introduce competition, protect consumers' interests, and provide power for all. This act provides for national electricity policy, rural electrification, open access in transmission, phased open access in distribution, mandatory establishment of state electricity regulatory commissions, license-free generation and distribution, power trading, mandatory metering, and stringent penalties for theft of electricity. It is a comprehensive legislation replacing Electricity Act 1910, Electricity Supply Act 1948, and Electricity Regulatory Commission Act 1998. The Electricity Act 2003 has been amended on two occasions so far by the Electricity Amendment Act 2003 and the Electricity Amendment Act 2007. The aim is very much clear, that is just to push the sector onto a trajectory of sound commercial growth and to enable the states and the center to move in harmony and coordination. This is very simplified picture diagram of power system interconnecting generating station, transmission line and distribution system. We generate power through various sizes of generators at different voltage level. For example, here we have taken a generator of 210 megawatt size which generates power at the voltage level of 15.75 kV with a current of about 9000 amperes. The voltage level of different size of generators is different. For example, it is 21 kV for 500 megawatt generator. The highest size of generator used in our country is 800 megawatt. Now, since the generated power is to be transmitted somewhere, we use a transformer in between generator and transmission line to step up the voltage to reduce the value of current. After stepping up voltage, this power will be transmitted through transmission line. The transmission line may be of either 132 kV, 220 kV, 400 kV or 765 kV. The highest operating transmission voltage in India is 765 kV. Finally, at the receiving end of transmission line, voltage level will be stepped down for distribution to the various kind of consumers. Some industrial consumers need power at 33 kV, some at 11 kV. Domestic consumers need three-phase, single-phase power at 415 to 30 volts, that is through three-phase four-wire system. So this is the basic structure of power system. This is the energy resource map of India. India is a land with vast natural resources. It has a plethora of coal mines, water bodies, areas with strong winds, and places rich in minerals. These enable the country to generate its energy. India is capable of meeting 90% of its energy needs. This is possible due to the availability of various renewable and non-renewable energy sources. In the map, you can see that this is a there is a very high hydro potential in northeast and upper part of northern region, particularly in the Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, and Jammu and Kashmir. It has been estimated that in Arunachal Pradesh itself, there is a hydro potential of about 36,000 megawatt. Coal reserves are mainly in the eastern region. As a result, distribution of energy resources and consumption centers are extremely unbalanced and necessitates power transfer over long distances. Now, we will discuss power generation in detail and we'll see the present scenario of generation capacity. The main sources of power generation in India are thermal power, hydropower, nuclear power, wind power, and solar power. Before going to the detail, we will have a short look on the background of Indian power sector. This is the background of Indian power sector. When India became independent in 1947, the country had a power generating capacity of 1362 megawatt only. Generation and distribution of electrical power was carried out primarily by the private utilities and villages did not have electricity. Power systems in the country were essentially isolated systems developed in and around urban and industrial areas. The highest transmission voltage at that time was 132 kV. Then state electricity boards were formed for development of generation, transmission, distribution and utilization of electricity in their respective states. The Damodar Valley Corporation (DVC) was established in 1948 by the Government of India, that is just after independence, for generation, transmission and distribution of electrical energy. Soon later, BBMB, that is Bhagra Vyas Management Board, was also constituted in 1967 for generation, transmission and distribution of electrical energy. In 1964, for the purpose of integration of state grid systems, the country was demarcated into five electrical regions, that is Eastern region, the Northeastern region, Northern region, the Western region and the Southern region. This is the power map of India. As I already told you, the entire country has been demarcated into five electrical regions. The eastern region comprising of Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal and Sikkim, that is five states. Similarly, the other regions like northern, eastern region, northern region, western region, southern region are also comprising of few states. Here you can see that each region has some special characteristics. For example, there is highly weather sensitive load in northern region. In northeastern region, load is very low but very high hydro potential. As I already told you that there is a very high hydro potential of about 36,000 megawatt in Arunachal Pradesh, but we are not able to exploit it because of evacuation problem. This is the hierarchy of national grid: 33 states grid, 5 regional grids, and 1 national grid. That is one nation, one grid. The national grid is the highest voltage capacity electricity transmission network connecting power stations and major substations and ensuring that electricity generated anywhere in India can be used to satisfy demand elsewhere. The national grid is owned, operated, and maintained by state-owned Power System Operation Corporation, that is POSOCO. The bulk generation and transmission. From the fifth plan onwards, that is 1974 to 79, the government of India got itself involved in a big way in the generation and bulk transmission of power to supplement the effort at the state level and took upon itself the responsibility of setting up large power projects to develop the coal and hydroelectric resources in the country as a supplementary effort in meeting the country's power requirements. The National Thermal Power Corporation (NTPC) and National Hydroelectric Power Corporation (NHPC) were set up for these purposes in 1975. Northeastern Electric Power Corporation, that is NIPCO, was set up in 1976 to implement the regional power projects in the Northeast. Subsequently, three more power generation corporations were set up in 1988, that is THDC, Chahari Hydro Development Corporation, NJPC, Nafta Jakri Power Corporation, and Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam Limited, that is SJVNL, to construct, operate, and maintain the interstate and regional transmission system. The National Power Transmission Corporation (NPTC) was also set up in 1989. This corporation was renamed as Power Grid in 1992. New developments in coal-fired power plants and coal mining. The number one is retirement of older coal-fired power plants. A significant percentage of coal-fired power plants in India have outlived their utility and are non-compliant with the country's environmental standards. Such older plants are based on outdated technologies and have high coal consumption, thus contributing significantly to environmental pollution. One of the major initiatives taken by the Government of India is retiring such old and inefficient thermal plants and replacing them with new and more efficient units. As per Central Electricity Authority guidelines, thermal power plants exceeding 25 years of commercial operations are either to be shut down or renovated. Alternatively, to continue operations, plant can switch to more efficient supercritical technologies. A capacity of 2.4 gigawatt and 5.1 gigawatt has already been retired during the 11th and 12th plan period respectively. Now some development has taken place in commercial coal mining also. In order to drive competition and adopt the best possible technology in mining, Government has taken a progressive and strategic approach towards privatizing coal mining in India. Recently, the government introduced the Coal Mines Special Provision Act 2015, which allows private companies to mine coal for commercial use. Under this new reform, allocation of coal blocks will be based on price per ton of coal offered to the state government, with no restriction on the sale of the commodity. Prior to the reform, the door was open to private players only for captive mining for their captive use, and they were not allowed to sell in the open market. Next, focus on supercritical technology. The government is shifting towards supercritical technology based units to enhance efficiency of power generation and reduce coal consumption of GHG emissions from coal fired power plants. Units based on supercritical technology have higher efficiency than conventional subcritical technology, thereby ensuring lower CO2 emissions. Supercritical units are designed with higher steam parameters of 247 kg per centimeter square with temperature of 565 degree to 593 degree centigrade. On account of the improved thermodynamics of expanding higher pressure and temperature, steam through turbines, they attain higher efficiencies than traditional subcritical power plants. In recent times, a majority of coal-based capacity addition are based on supercritical technology. During the 12th plan period, coal-based capacity addition through supercritical technology accounted for 42%, that is 35.2 gigawatt of the total capacity addition from the coal units. This capacity addition had an impact on CO2 emissions. Nearly 20.69 metric ton of CO2 has been avoided due to adoption of supercritical technology in thermal generation. Now next point is environmental concerns due to coal-fired power plants. I would like to tell you that India occupies the fourth position globally in terms of CO2 emissions from energy production. It contributes 7% of global emissions. One of the biggest challenges involved in the use of coal as a resource is environmental contamination. Coal combustion at thermal power plants emits mainly carbon dioxide, sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, CFCs, other trace gases, and airborne inorganic particulates such as fly ash and suspended particulate matter SPM. The water runoff from coal washeries carries pollutants that contaminate groundwater, rivers, and lakes, thus affecting aquatic flora and fauna. Water is used for washing coal, circulating in the boiler furnace to produce steam and cool equipment. Dust from coal cleaned water contaminates groundwater. Hot water, if let out into water bodies without cooling, causes a rise in temperature and affects aquatic flora and fauna. Disposal of larger quantities of fly ash from coal-based plants affects natural soil properties. Soil becomes more alkaline due to the alkaline nature of fly ash. These are some environmental and health risks posed by coal-based power plants. This is the facts and figure of village electrification in the country. India is having about 6 lakh villages and all the villages has been electrified under the scheme RGGVY, that is Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikara Yojana, which was launched in 2005. Later on, it was renamed as DDUGJY in 2014, that is Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, with new definition of village electrification. As per the new definition of village electrification, a village would be declared electrified only if basic infrastructure such as distribution transformer and distribution lines are provided in the inhabited locally as well as Dalit Basti hamlet where it exists. Electricity is provided to public places like schools, panchayat office, health centers, dispensaries, community center, etc. The third condition is the number of households electrified should be at least 10% of the total number of households in the village. And fourth one is mandatory certification from Gram Panchayat regarding the completion of village electrification should be obtained. Then only any village will be declared as electrified as per new definition. This is the figure of all India per capita consumption of electricity in India. It is 1181 kilowatt hour based on the data of 2013-19. Per capita consumption of electricity is considered as an index of development because it shows that how the condition of the situation of the country is. Per capita consumption of electricity is calculated by the formula. It is written here, that is gross generation plus net import divided by mid-year population. If you compare per capita consumption of electricity in India, you will find that per capita consumption of electricity in BRICS country is much higher than India. South Africa 3904, China 4475, Brazil 2516, India only 1181, Russia 7481 kilowatt hour. Now, renewable energy in India. Renewable energy is a fast emerging area as a major source of power in India. The main source of renewable power in India are solar energy, wind energy, small hydro, waste to energy, and bioenergy. In 2015-16, the Government of India released a roadmap to achieve 175 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2022. Solar power 100 gigawatt, wind power 60 gigawatt, biopower 10 gigawatt, and small hydro 5 megawatt. That is total 175 gigawatt. Achievement you can see here as on 31st 10 2019, we have achieved so far 31.69 gigawatt solar power, 37.09 gigawatt wind power, 9.9 gigawatt biopower, 4.6 gigawatt small power. The total we have achieved so far 83.37 gigawatt as on 31st 10 2019. There has been a visible impact of solar energy in the Indian energy scenario during the last few years. Solar energy based decentralized and distributed applications have benefited millions of people in Indian villages by meeting their cooking, lighting, and other energy needs in an environment friendly manner. We have just discussed that Government of India has set a target of 100 gigawatts solar installed capacity by 2022. To achieve this ambitious target, the government has also prepared a rent a roof policy for supporting its target of generating 40 gigawatt of power through solar rooftop projects. The remaining 60 gigawatt will be achieved from solar installation on land, that is on barren land. The Government of India is also planning to invite bids for the largest solar tender in the world for installing 20 gigawatt of solar power capacity to give a boost to manufacturing of solar power equipment in India. Recently, India has achieved fifth global position in solar power development by surpassing Italy. Solar power capacity has increased by more than 11 times in the last 5 years from 2.6 gigawatt in 2014 to 31.69 gigawatt in 2019. You can also see the achievement figure of global versus India, which is 647 gigawatt and 31.69 gigawatt respectively. This is the total solar PV cumulative capacity of top 10 countries. You can see here China is at top with 175.1 gigawatt capacity, United States on second, Japan on third, Germany on fourth, and India is on fifth. This is the data of 2018. This is the projected solar PV cumulative installed capacity by 2023 of top 10 countries. So by 2023, the China's capacity will be 448.1, United States 132.4, India's capacity will be 116.1, and Germany 82.4. So by 2023, the total PV cumulative installed capacity in the world will be around 1296 gigawatt. Installed wind power capacity global versus India. India has the fourth largest installed capacity in wind power after China, US, and Germany. The total installed capacity of wind power in India is around 37.09 gigawatt. It has been estimated that there is a 302 gigawatt of wind power potential in India. In our country, The potential of wind energy is concentrated in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. Tamil Nadu has the highest installed capacity in the country. Here you can see the wind power installed capacity figure of top 10 countries: China, US, Germany, India, Spain, United Kingdom, France, Brazil, Canada, and Italy. China is at top, Italy is at 10th position. Finally, this is the renewable energy installed capacity global versus India. India is at 86.75 gigawatt and global 2378 gigawatt. Now, India is the fifth global position for overall installed renewable energy capacity, which includes solar power, wind power, biopower, etc. This is the projected global wind and solar installation in gigawatt by 2023. You can see here the total solar installation will be 1296 gigawatt against wind installation of 903 gigawatt by 2023. This is the projected power scenario in India by 2022, 2027 and 2030. The total power generating installed capacity by 2022, 2027 and 2030 will be 483 gigawatt, 617 gigawatt and 831 gigawatt respectively. Transmission infrastructure in India. The Indian electricity transmission segment has been constantly evolving in the line with the increasing power demand and the changing energy mix due to the influx of renewables. As of August 2019, the total transmission line length stood at 4.17 lakh circuit kilometer and AC substation capacity at 9.21 lakhs MVA and the high voltage direct current, that is HVDC substation capacity at 22,500 megawatt. The inter-regional transmission capacity has also grown significantly over the years to stand at 99,050 megawatt as of March 2019. Significantly, 24,000 megawatt of this capacity has been added in the past 2 years. In recent years, private participation in the transmission segment has also increased significantly, with a share of 7.4% in total line length during 2018-19. Green energy corridors. For the integration of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2022, Power Grid, which is central transmission utility of our country, along with other involved state utilities, is undertaking the Green Energy Corridor projects to connect new solar and wind capacity in two phases, that is GEC 1 and GEC 2. Now interconnections with neighboring countries. India being centrally placed in South Asian region and sharing political boundaries with SAARC countries, namely Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan, is playing a major role in facilitating planning of interconnections with these countries for effective utilization of regional resources. India has developed expertise in implementation of HVDC and USB AC projects, and it will be a privilege to connect all the neighboring countries electrically through HVDC and USB AC transmission lines. This shall give rise to mutual cooperation amongst neighboring nations and lead to prosperity and energy security in the region. India is already having interconnections with SAARC countries as is shown here. We have three connections with Bhutan at 400 kV, 220 kV and 132 kV level, net import by India. We have also connected Nepal with 16 links of 220 kV, 132 kV, 33 kV and 11 kV. About 550 megawatt of power can be supplied to Nepal through these interconnections. Bangladesh is also connected with India with 400 kV double circuit line along with 2 into 500 megawatt HVDC back-to-back system. These interconnections cumulatively facilitate transfer of power of the order of 1200 megawatt to Bangladesh. We are also going to connect Sri Lanka with HVDC back-to-back HVDC lines. Grid is also going to be formed with the cooperation of all the neighboring countries of SAARC. Distribution infrastructure in India. It consists of 73 power distribution utilities, serves close to 200 million consumers, connected load of around 400 gigawatt. Current issues and challenges of power distribution utilities. The number one is high technical and commercial losses. Despite concerted efforts by the central and state governments over the last few years, the AT&C losses, that is aggregate technical and commercial losses, have remained significantly higher compared to the international standards. The second point is tariffs not being cost reflective. Inadequate tariff increases, deferred tariff filings, delayed receipt of subsidies from the state governments for providing power to below poverty line, and agricultural consumers at subsidized rates, and increase in regulatory assets have led to the lower cost coverage, leading to poor financial health of discounts. Now next point is inability of discounts to buy cheaper power due to legacy power purchase agreement PPAs. Most of the thermal power projects in operation have a significant portion of the power contracted through long-term PPAs, consisting of two-part structure, that is capacity charge and energy charge. With the increasing penetration of renewable energy in the Indian power sector, and renewables being given a must-run status, the dispatch from thermal generators have reduced, leading to low PLFs of approximately 60%. This adds to the burden of discoms as they continue to pay the capacity charge around 45 to 50% of the total tariff for the contracted thermal capacities, although power is not scheduled, and cheaper power may be available in the spot markets. Poor financial health of discoms. High transmission and distribution and AT&C losses have adversely affected the financial sustainability of the state utilities, causing poor financial health of discoms. The total outstandings due to further distribution companies to generator as of September 2019 was around 81,388 crores. Successful implementation of several government initiatives. Power for All PFA initiatives. The Power for All initiative, along with other implementation initiatives across various states, aim to ensure 24 into 7 electricity access to all consumers, excluding agriculture by 2022. It would be a key driver for increasing power demand. Electric vehicles integration. The Government of India has prepared a National Electric Mobility Mission Plan aiming for 100% adoption of electric vehicles by 2030. This would also be a key demand driver in the next decade. Total electricity demand for electric vehicles may vary between 37 and 97 terawatt hours. Under 33% and 100% penetration of electric vehicles in sales by 2030. Make in India. This initiative, which aims to boost manufacturing shares would also lead to substantial growth in electricity demand. Next point is reduction of aggregate technical and commercial losses. The programs for reduction of AT&C losses like Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, that is UDAY, Integrated Power Development Scheme IPDS, and Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana DDU-GJY have been successfully implemented by the Government of India. The target is to reduce AT&C losses to about 13% by the year 2021-22 on an all India basis, which would lead to reduction in electricity demand. Demand side management, that is energy conservation and efficiency improvement programs. Programs for DSM, improvement of energy efficiency and energy conservation measures like standards and labeling by BEE, the Perform Achieve Trade PAT scheme in industries, energy efficient lighting solutions, and the super efficient equipment program would reduce power demand in near future. So this was all about the emerging power scenario in India. Thank you. Ultra mega power projects. Ultra mega power projects are a series of ambitious power stations planned by the Government of India. The project is being developed with the intention of providing power to consumers at minimum cost. Because of the huge size of these power plants, the cost of electricity would be lower due to the economies of scale. Ministry of Power launched the initiative of ultra mega power projects, each of 4,000 megawatt capacity super thermal power stations, both pithead and imported coal based in November 2005. For these plants, there will be dedicated captive coal blocks for pithead projects and coastal projects to use imported coal. Pithead based projects means the project near coal mines. Initially, following 9 ultra mega power projects were proposed to be set up in the different states. These 4 ultra mega power projects are Sasan, Tilaja, Sundargarh, and Akaltara were identified as pithead projects. However, only Sasan project, which is owned by Reliance Power Limited, has been commissioned and in operation so far. Similarly, these 5 ultra mega power projects, Mundra, Krishnapatnam, Dadri, Giriye, and Cheyur, were identified as imported coal based projects, out of which only Mundra project, owned by Tata Power Company, has been commissioned so far. In addition to 9 ultra mega power projects originally identified, installation of few additional ultra mega projects in different states are also in the progress. This is the scenario of total installed capacity. The country's total installed power generating capacity stood at about 370 gigawatt as of March 31st, 2020. Out of this thermal power, which includes coal, lignite, gas, and diesel based power stations, accounted for about 230 gigawatt, that is 62% of the total installed capacity. Nuclear only 6.7 gigawatt, hydro accounted for 45 gigawatt, and renewable energy sources contributed to roughly 86.75 gigawatt, which is 23.45% of the total installed capacity. If we look the region-wise installed capacity of power generation, the share of western region is highest with 120.5 gigawatt. Southern region comes at second position with installed capacity of 111.9 gigawatt. Northern region with 99.47 gigawatt is at third position, and Eastern region at fourth position with 33.53 gigawatt. NER region is having the lowest installed capacity of 4.5 gigawatt. Captive generation is not included in total installed capacity. Now, what is captive power plant? A captive power plant is an electricity generation facility used and managed by an industrial or commercial electricity user for their own electricity consumption. Captive power plants can operate off-grid or they can be connected to the grid to exchange excess generation. Captive power plants are generally used by power intensive industries where continuity and quality of power supply are crucial, such as aluminum smelter plants, steel plants, chemical plants, etc. Therefore, in addition to 370 gigawatt installed capacity, captive generation is also available in India with installed capacity of about 55 gigawatt. If we look sector-wise installed capacity of power generation, you will find that central sector accounted for 25%, state sector accounted for 28%, and the share of private sector is 47%. This is the bar chart of thermal power plant load factor of various sectors. On all India basis, it was 52.55% in March 2020. Now, what is PLF? PLF is the ratio of average power generated by the plant to the maximum power that could have been generated in a given time. Plant load factor is one of the performance parameter of a power plant. It is a degree of plant capacity utilization for a period of time. More the PLF, more will be the revenue of the plant. Alternatively, higher the PLF, lesser will be the cost of per unit energy generated.